Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I am Graham G.S. Matthews. Only 12 more days to go until SummerSlam 2015, but all summer long right here in WrestleRant, I've been breaking down every installment of SummerSlam as seen on the WWE Network, and today we're breaking down the 2007 installment of the biggest party of the summer. So without further ado, let's kick it off with the opening match, Kane versus Finlay. Good match, not really much to it. The commentators kind of gave the background to it, and that Kane before this was involved in the world title picture. Of course, before Edge went down with an injury, he was involved in the Triple Threat World Heavyweight Championship match at the Great American Bash pay-per-view with Batista and the Great Khali. Came up short in that contest. Finlay right after that cost him, I guess in some way in that match or shortly thereafterwards, cost him his shot at the World Heavyweight title, thus triggering this feud. So a pretty basic feud just to get both guys in the card. A good match, not really much to it. Kane went over clean, 1, 2, 3. Finlay was a guy, and I've always talked about this before. I wrote articles on this and whatever, but Finlay was a guy to me that I felt like was very underrated. Now, I know he got his various world title shots in the latter half of 2006. At one point, he was perceived to be a legitimate top heel on the SmackDown brand. And I mean, he did was used okay in 2007. I think it was 06 that he got his U.S. title run. 07, not as good for him, but still kind of a lot better than his subsequent years in WWE. He was a guy that I felt like could have had a decent run with that World Heavyweight Championship. Ultimately never came to fruition, unfortunately, but still, in regards to this match, a good opener to the show. Nothing too special, but a solid opener nevertheless. After that, we had for the Intercontinental Championship a triple threat match, Umaga versus Carlito versus Mr. Kennedy. Now, this is a weird time in Umaga's career, the first and only time they ever really tried him out as a babyface, and I'm surprised they didn't really go all the way with it. They kind of teased it, like I said, that summer, in the summer of 2007, but after that, they kind of aborted it, and he went back to being a heel by that fall. He went right into that feud with Triple H by the fall of 2007, so I don't know why they felt the need, maybe just to do this match, just to do the match with Carlito and Kennedy, and he was kind of the babyface, the de facto babyface by default. I'm not exactly sure, but it was a really good match, though. One of the better Intercontinental title matches at SummerSlam at this point in time. There were a lot better IC title matches early on in the mid-90s, pretty much, but this was still a really fun match and a lot better than it had any right to be, considering that Umaga didn't really have a full-fledged face turn, whereas Carlito and Kennedy, while they were pretty good heels, I mean, I always thought both guys, like Finlay, could have gotten better treatment in WWE towards the end of their respective runs with the company. They weren't really doing much at this period in time. Kennedy had just put Bobby Lashley on the shelf, and Carlito, I don't think was doing anything. He had just kind of finished up a feud with Ric Flair, I think, earlier on that year. I'm not exactly sure what he was doing at that period in time, but still, a very good match. And Umaga coming out victorious, still the Intercontinental Champion. After that, Rey Mysterio versus Chavo Guerrero, the first of two returns on this show. The first being Rey Mysterio. Later on, we would get the return of Triple H. But this came 1 year, almost exactly, after Chavo Guerrero put Rey Mysterio on the shelf in their I Quit match on SmackDown, targeting that knee. After Rey Mysterio was legitimately injured, in reality, they had to put him on. They had to write him out of storylines for the next year, making his big comeback on this show. And a pretty good match too. I thought it was better. A significant improvement over their SummerSlam 06 match, which I didn't necessarily not like. I talked about it in that review a couple days ago here in WrestleRant. I enjoyed that match. I thought it was a nice opener. It was very fitting in the opening match of the show. But I thought this match was even better because it had a better story to it. I mean, the first match was basically, Chavo cost me my World Heavyweight Championship. A lot like the opener to this show, Kane and Finlay. A basic feud, not much to it. I mean, people cared, but it wasn't like a top feud or anything like that. Neither was this feud, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it had a lot more story to it with Chavo putting Rey Mysterio on the shelf a year earlier. Now, I was thinking when watching this matchup, how much more meaningful would it have felt for Rey Mysterio to finally exact his revenge on Chavo had he been built up as a top heel, not a top heel, but built up a lot better than he had been from late 06 to 2007. If you really think about it, after Rey Mysterio went down with that injury, Chavo Guerrero, they had a prime opportunity. They had a grand opportunity to build Chavo up as a legitimate heel on the SmackDown brand. Now, I think if I remember correctly, he contended for the U.S. title. He flirted with the U.S. title a few times in the latter half of 2006 after Mysterio went down with the injury. But in 07, they did nothing with him. I'm pretty sure they actually did with the whole Cruiserweight title thing. Where he could have been a United States champion if they pushed him towards that level, but they ended up putting MVP in there instead. Whatever, but still, I feel like, having, Rey Mysterio come back and get his revenge was cool and all, But anyone who followed Chavo Guerrero after he took Rey Mysterio out, they had a great opportunity to start building him up as something much more than just a cruiserweight guy. But that's exactly what he reverted back to right before Rey Mysterio came back. Almost exactly a month before this, he lost the Cruiserweight Championship to fucking Hornswoggle. You remember that at the Great American Bash pay-per-view? And then shortly thereafterwards, unsurprisingly, the title was retired. So, but anyway, I felt like that was a missed opportunity. But other than that, though, the match as a standalone match was pretty good and probably my favorite match from the two. Probably, definitely better than their SummerSlam 2006 encounter, in my opinion. After that, we did an interpromotional Divas Battle Royale to determine a number one contender to the Women's Championship, where Candice Michelle was a commentator at ringside. I don't think she was on commentary. I think she just might have been at ringside. I don't remember exactly. But it had divas from Raw, SmackDown, ECW. Massive train wreck, as you would expect when you have 15 women just in the ring at the same time. A lot of them just have no business being in there, like Layla, Brooke, and Kelly Kelly. Layla was not a polished in-ring performer as she would have been in the years to come. Brooke and Kelly Kelly, same exact thing. Jillian was in there, Maria, a lot of people who just weren't good workers and therefore made for just one clusterfuck of a match, as you can expect. Thankfully, it did not last too long. And I mean, it was the Divas. You can never really complain about seeing 15 hot women in the same ring at the same time, am I right? But still, in the end, it was Beth Phoenix, who was a relatively newcomer on the scene, emerging victorious to become the new number one contender to that title. And I say relatively because she did not make her debut that year. Technically, she debuted right after WrestleMania 22 when she attacked Mickie James or attacked Trish or whatever it was. She was going to start an angle with Mickie James and kind of be inserted into that whole feud between Trish and Mickie in 2006. But after breaking her nose, she was out on the shelf for about a year, I think. A very serious injury that put her on the shelf for a very long time. She was brought back down to OVW. Came up on the main roster, returned to the main roster as the Glamazon, kicking off her run, her dominant run on the WWE main roster, and later on going to win the Women's Championship a couple months after this. So a good win for Beth Phoenix and easily the most logical pick to go over here. After that, for the ECW Championship, John Morrison, the artist formerly known as Johnny Nitro, defending the gold against CM Punk. Not that good of a match, and maybe just my opinion of these matches has been skewed after watching their Night of Champions match, their Great American Bash match. After, anyone who's seen CM Punk's documentary knows that he was not fond of this series of matches. And I remember watching some video not too long ago, actually, where CM Punk, or rather John Morrison, had responded to those comments. And they asked him, CM Punk on his DVD kind of buried their series of matches. And he said, CM Punk even said on the DVD he loves Morrison to death, but their chemistry was just not clicking that summer for whatever reason. Their Night of Champions match, their Great American Bash match, this match just weren't as good as they could have been. And they proved in that 15 Minutes of Fame match on ECW for the ECW Championship, or the Last Chance match, rather, that they could go out there and rip just rip it up and have a hell of a match, and that's exactly what they did, which is also featured on Punk's DVD, where he ultimately won the ECW title. But this match, as Punk kind of mentioned in the documentary, they were kind of shortchanged for time, and that was kind of a lot of factors. A lot of factors went into those matches not being as good as they could have been, as I said before. So this match was really nothing notable, especially not as good compared to the Last Chance match we would get between the two the very next month on ECW, where Punk would finally win that belt. This match, though, kind of threw away. The crowd wasn't really into it. I don't blame them. The match really wasn't that good. Kind of some sloppy spots here and there. But in the end, though, it was John Morrison, still your ECW champion. After that, we had Triple H versus King Booker. Triple H's grand return to the WWE after a multi-month layoff after injuring his quad, I want to say. I know he injured his quad back in 2001, but I'm pretty sure it was the same injury early on in 2007 at the New Year's Revolution pay-per-view. But yeah, in his absence, King Booker had been drafted to Raw, saying he was the WWE's sole and only king, targeting Jerry the King Lawler on Raw as kind of a mini feud before Triple H came back, leading to this match on the show. It was a good match. It wasn't a bad match at all. It just kind of felt like a showcase for Triple H more than anything else. It was obvious that the only reason they had brought Booker to Raw was to do this one-and-off feud, this one-off match with Triple H, and then not do anything with him for the remainder of his Raw run. He was gone from the company about 2 months after this. I don't even think he was at the Unforgiven pay-per-view, and this is the guy that was world champion for many months in the latter half of 2006. So. And even Booker T said himself in some interview that I was reading after I watched his pay-per-view that he wasn't really fond of being moved to Raw because he kind of felt lost in the shuffle. And that was kind of apparent too. Like I said, the only real reason they brought him to that show was to not really bring any star power to Raw, but rather to do this King of Kings feud with Triple H upon his return, put him over, and that was it. So a good match. I mean, I'm not surprised by the ending. I'm not even saying King Booker should have gone over, but they really should have done more with Booker after this match, after this feud was over. Maybe elongate a little bit. I'm pretty sure they just did one match and that was it. Unless they did a Raw rematch or something like that, I'm sure as hell that I know for a fact they didn't do a rematch at Unforgiven. And like I said, Booker wasn't even on that show, and I'm pretty sure he got suspended after this anyway for the whole pharmaceutical thing or whatever happened with the mass suspensions, and he left the company that October, as they mentioned. But see, that kind of felt like a missed opportunity to me. A good match, a logical feud, and a logical winner. Like I said, I don't really disagree with it, but I feel like they should have had more long-term plans in place for King Booker and not really put his talent to waste. After that, for the World Heavyweight Championship, the Great Khali defending against Batista in a just shitty-ass match. Any match with Great Khali is going to be bad. This one being no exception. Batista tried his best to get a good match out of him. And, keyword, emphasize on the word try there. He tried. It wasn't really all that successful. I just was not a fan of this match. Much like, it's weird, too, because I think it was this match and the month before this, at 05, was it? Oh, no, it was 04, were the WWE title match. It always feels like the SmackDown matches, the SmackDown World title matches, end on DQs on this show. It was 04 where the WWE title match between JBL and Undertaker ended in DQ. 05 was a no-holds-barred match, so they couldn't do a DQ on that show, whereas the world title match at the Great American Bash the month before ended in DQ. 06, we had, what was it? It was Batista. Oh, and King Booker. That match ended in DQ. Wasn't a fan of that. And this match was no different. And what was worse was that the match that Khali and Batista had was even worse than the match they had between Booker and Batista the year before. So this was a massive downgrade from that match. A shitty finish. They wanted to protect Khali. They also wanted to protect Batista. It just didn't work. Very lazy booking all around. Batista took out Khali after the match by just relentlessly swinging the chair at him. So they wanted to have, the crowd not send them home happy. This was not the main event, thank God. But just lazy booking to further the feud. And why this feud went on as long as it did, I have no idea. They had matches at Great American Bash, SummerSlam, Unforgiven, and No Mercy. Now, I know some of those matches were triple threats, but it was still a part of the feud nevertheless. Just Khali, why they even opted to put the world title on him, much less for as long as they did, is beyond me. But this match was shitty, a shitty finish, and basically what you would expect from the people that were involved. So then we get to the main event, John Cena versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. And I thought I would never say this, because I've never really been a fan of the chemistry that Orton and Cena have. Now, they've had some really good matches in the past. I've reviewed a lot of pay-per-views that they've had, where they've had good matches, with their series of matches in 2009 that I was a fan of, other than that shitty SummerSlam match, which I'll get to actually in my next WrestleRant video, more on that later. I was not a fan of that match, but I liked their Breaking Point match, their Hell in a Cell match, and especially their Iron Man match. Those three matches I thought were stellar, but the matches they had in the years after that I was not a fan of, and it just kind of, Cena versus Orton, oh yeah, that whole kind of thing. But still, this match I thought was probably one of, if not their best match they've ever had. I thought it was really good. It might have played a factor in the fact that it was fresh. It was something new. Orton was being built up as a legitimate threat at this period in time. He had taken out Dusty Rhodes. He had taken out Rob Van Dam and Shawn Michaels, all these different guys in the months leading up to this pay-per-view. So he felt like a real threat to that WWE title. They could have gotten more time. The match only went 13 minutes, so for a WWE title match in the main event of SummerSlam, it felt like something straight out of the late 80s or early 90s. I talked about it in those videos, so those matches really didn't get much time at all, and this was no exception. It felt like they went a lot longer than it did, but nevertheless, for the time they were given, they made the most of it. They had a really good match. John Cena going over after kicking out of an RKO, hits the FU, 1, 2, 3, still your WWE champion. Had been WWE champion for about 11 months up to this point after beating Edge for the belt at Unforgiven 06, and people were just kind of sick of him at this point and really wanted to see him drop that championship. But still, as we would soon learn, it was only the beginning of the feud between Cena and Orton. Not only the multi-year feud, leading up to present day almost, but they would continue to feud over that fall before Cena got hurt. Orton won the belt, and the rest is history. But still, the best way to close off the show, there was no other match that I thought could have gone on last other than Cena and Orton. So it was great to see kind of the OVW Class of 2002 get the shining spotlight in the main event of SummerSlam. So on the whole, kind of a dull show. It wasn't a bad show, just really nothing did it for me at all. Kane and Finlay was good, not, albeit unspectacular. The triple threat match was better than expected, not must-see, but that was kind of fun. Mysterio and Chavo, another good match. It just really didn't feel like, much like SummerSlam 06, there were no must-see matches. And for the better half, for the better part of this show, the Divas match was what it was. Punk and Morrison, a disappointment. I mean, at the time, I'm sure it was a disappointment. In retrospect, it really was, knowing how not good these matches were on pay-per-view between Morrison and Punk. Triple H and Booker was just kind of there solid, but you already kind of knew the winner, so it was cool to see Triple H back, but the match wasn't really anything special. The world title match was shit, and the main event I thought was great. So the only real one match worth watching from the show, in my opinion, when it's going to feel weird to say this, considering how, how this match has been dug down and deep into the ground, how run down it's been over the last 7-8 years. John Cena and Randy Orton in the main event. I thought it was a great match and the best way to close out the show after a kind of an unspectacular, lackluster undercard for the pay-per-view. So, would I recommend you go out of your way to watch a show? Probably not. I thought it was slightly better maybe than SummerSlam 06. And, not really. I thought the main event matches did not deliver, whereas the main event matches at SummerSlam 06 kind of did. There were better matches than that show. So you can be the judge for yourself. I don't think this pay-per-view is worth watching. I thought it was just kind of dull. We were kind of fresh off the Benoit tragedy, so the quality of the product is really not that great at that period in time. People were just kind of still coping from that whole thing, and the product was still trying to bounce back from that whole fiasco, that whole huge tragedy, unfortunate tragedy in the summer of 2007. But still, like I said, the main event was great, so there is at least one big highlight coming out of this show. So, right here up next on WrestleRant on Saturday, if all goes well, I can get the review up, and if anything, if everything goes according to schedule, everything goes according to plan, my review of SummerSlam 2009 will be up here on the channel. Now, you're probably asking yourself why I'm skipping over SummerSlam 2008. Now, it's not because I don't like the show. I love the show. In fact, it's one of my favorite SummerSlams of all time. I own it on DVD. I'll probably be watching it. I will be watching it. Even all the pay-per-views I've already reviewed, I'm watching over again. But there you go. I just said I already reviewed SummerSlam 2008 right here on the channel last summer. So I don't know what number it is. I forgot. But you have to go back in the WrestleRant editions in the playlist on the channel. And you'll find it for yourself. My full review of SummerSlam 2008 is already up here in the channel. So I won't be doing it again. Go check out that one before watching SummerSlam 2009. My review of that show this upcoming Saturday right here on the channel. But in the meantime, and in between time, you guys can follow me on the Twitter at WrestleRant. Find me on Facebook. Give the page an old thumbs up at facebook.com/graham.g.matthews. Also, be sure to check out the website at nextairwrestling.net. And last but not least, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All support is greatly appreciated. Be sure, as I mentioned, to check out next week's, or this Saturday's WrestleRant video for my full review of SummerSlam 09. But stay tuned throughout the week right here on the channel for WrestleRant radio excerpts, random video blogs, and much more exclusive content right here on the channel. So with all that being said, folks, have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch you guys down the road.